The best salespeople in the world are the ones who do it without you even noticing. Everyone's a salesperson, especially if you're an entrepreneur. In the I'm Not Salesy podcast, join me, Cassie McKenzie, and my fabulous guests as we dive into the top strategies, mindset, and energetics around sales and money so that you can hear more, yes, I'm in, instead of crickets or getting ghosted. So if you're ready to fully book out your programs with aligned AF clients and have people chasing you down in your inbox, asking how to work with you, then subscribe to this podcast today and become not salesy too. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the I'm Not Salesy podcast. And if you've been a listener for any amount of time, you know how much I love talking about money and having guests on that really help you get your financial shit in gear. And most of the time, if you go back and listen to a lot of the previous episodes, you find like there's a lot of conversations around money energetics. But today I have a different twist. So today I have a very special guest, Angela Duncan, and we're going to do more of a practical conversation around your goals with money and how you can set yourself up to really achieve them, especially as an entrepreneur. So Angela started her career in banking and she moved into financial advising. She's owned a Remax office. She's lived in Tampa, which is right near me. So that's pretty cool, right? And then she started an insurance agency and found that her passion is really inspiring hope through financial literacy. So Angela's got a big goal, and it's to help reverse the trend of the poverty gap that we're experiencing here in America. But also, like having a worldwide business, though, like if you're a coach or if you're coaching people on this, like a lot of times your clients can be from all over the world. So I think this topic can really help people on a lot of different levels, all over the world. So welcome, Angela. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your time and excited to be here as well.
Yeah. So I've been following you on Instagram. You've had some really fun adventures lately. I saw you went to was it the 10X conference and
Yes.
down in Miami? And what's like the biggest takeaway from an experience like that with regard to like what our conversation is here with money? Because I'm sure, like when you put yourself in the room with other like high performing people and when you are you know, surrounded by people who constantly want to make themselves better and work on themselves. And, it's like millionaires who are like, well, 1 million's not enough. I need 10, and to have other people around that aren't saying, well, that's greedy. It's more of people are like, yeah, hell yeah, that's 10. You're just playing small,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your take on that and your experience.
Yeah. So being in South Florida, I have the opportunity to go to a lot of the Cardone events. And
Mm-hmm.
so my takeaway from this is that I invest in myself first. And that's usually
Mm-hmm.
what I tell my clients is if you want to become better at what you're doing, if you want to create more income for your goals, to leave a legacy, to give back to charity, you have to invest in yourself first. So there are different ticket levels for all of these events. And I choose to go with the highest ticket level because I want to see people doing huge impacts and what their career is. And I've always have something to learn. So I'm very inquisitive. I ask a lot of questions. And
Yeah.
my goal is to reach and meet 5 new people. I'm not looking to meet 20 because I think that's impossible for us to build and connect with them. I want to meet 5 people. I want to learn about their business. I want to see their journey. Where is their passion? What is their why? And what do they struggle with in their business? And
Mm-hmm.
stay in contact with them. So I always say, like, if you're going to go to these events, the network. The
Yeah.
information provided from stage is going to be high level for the most part.
Yeah.
Events like this, they're going to sell you something. Always know that that's what you're going
Yeah.
to. But connect with people because at the end of the day, that's what I'm going to take away is that connection. How can I help you? How can I further your mission, your career? And what kind of information am I going to take away from that? It's the network. It's not necessarily the stage itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So who's been like the most, you don't have to say like who the name is, but like what's the type of person that you find like pushes you to become better?
Yeah, I'm a survivor from childhood trauma. So what I often find is that
Aren't we
women
all?
who,
Oh my God.
yeah, yeah,
I feel like,
and it's different because if you put yourself in a room with like five women and five men who are doing like huge successful businesses, typically it's the woman that comes from trauma, and the men usually come from great upbringings. So I find that very different in that dynamic. But I also love working with women because if we've gone through trauma and we've survived that, we think with our hearts, we move with our hearts. And so connecting with someone through their heart and not so much a logical thinking brain, it can be pretty impactful. So understanding that, understanding what your audience is, similar to what you do, you know, I believe that I work with women better because
Mhm.
I understand the heart part of how we are driven, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I don't really have a preference one way or another. I've always grown up with like all brothers, but then online, I feel like in, the coaching industry, it's like it feels like it's female dominated. And I have like a big pharmaceutical sales background. So that's for sure. But I feel like it's all, you get what you look for. If I went to a meeting and I looked for all women, I would see like all women in the back. But if I went and I looked to check out and be like, oh, any hot guys here? And be like, yeah, there's like a ton of guys here. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I could see it both ways. But, they, that's really fascinating to me, that like your perspective and takeaway on that, on like kind of like the past history and demographics of these types of people. I know Tony Robbins came from a pretty hard upbringing, and I think so often it can make people like strive to be better, to be like, I'm never going through that again, I'm never making my
Mhm,
kids go through that again. Or
mhm.
it can make people kind of go into that trauma response. I mean, there's a lot of things that having an online business, it shines a light on, right? Like all of your insecurities and any kind of procrastination, like nobody's coming to save you. Like people want to be held like so delicately, but you're like, it's not going to make you better if you're, worried about, did somebody just go hurt your feelings? You know what I mean? Because like the world's
Yeah,
going to try to hurt your feelings, and you'll get over it. They're not beating you across the head from like 1,000 miles away.
yeah, and no matter what information you're putting out there, someone's going to have a different opinion than
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah.
it's so easy for people to be online and for them to have their opinion known. And I used to be offended by it, and I would want to argue and say, no, like this is logic. I'm talking about data, especially teaching finances.
Yeah.
A lot of it is data driven, but I learned I just don't respond anymore. I have to let it go because
Yeah.
it's their opinion. Their background is why they're having this opinion, and I
Yeah.
don't know what they've been through in order to form what they're thinking. So I
Mm-hmm.
just let it go.
100%.
Otherwise you could drive yourself crazy with all that negativity. And I'd prefer to keep the world positive as possible. I want to give great energy and positivity. And I think when you surround yourself with positivity, it really keeps the negativity out of your life. And that's just,
Well,
what I want.
yeah. And I feel like it's not so much to me anymore about just like shining positivity everywhere. It's more of like managing my energy,
Mm.
like the energetic leaks that happen when you're sitting there having a pissing contest with somebody who has to be right all the time. And there comes this moment where you're like, damn, I've grown. When you can look at them and be like, they are just going to basically flush their day down the toilet over this. And I'm going to go move on and make $10,000. Okay. So bye.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. I'd rather be happy than right
Yeah,
sometimes. That's the way.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. I always say to my husband, are you willing to die on this hill for this? Like, really, are
Yeah.
you going to? Like, anyway, okay. So now, how does that come into your financial literacy coaching for, I'm going to say women, right? Do you work with women? But guys, I know we have some guys in our audience here. So this applies to you too, duh, because money doesn't know if you have a penis or not. But let's go. Let's say, okay, what are the biggest things? If I like to start with like manageable things.
Sure.
So, are there three main things that stand out to you as far as where people get tripped up with money, especially starting a business or, just in life in general, because let's face it, right now there are uncertain times.
Mhm.
And, you know, regardless of whatever the spiritual ease and flow community wants to say, there are a lot of people who are affected by, I mean, my husband's been laid off for like a year. He's still looking for a job that is, appropriate. There's, a lot of people who have lost their homes or, dealing with day-to-day stress financially, mortgage companies, everything. And what are you seeing right now that you want to help people with?
Yeah, I like to start with just simple action items.
Mhm,
So oftentimes I like to say if you grabbed your phone and you open Google Maps and you put in an address,
mhm,
well, Google's not going to tell you how to get there unless you know where you are today. So the first thing I always tell people is, what does your financial picture look like today? And I think people are so scared sometimes to make changes because they feel overwhelmed. So let's just make this simple. What do you make? What are your expenses? And there's tons of apps like Every Dollar by Dave Ramsey or Mint. These are free apps that you can put in your information and it will
mhm.
show you that picture. So don't feel like you're behind. Don't feel like you could have been better or I could have done this or this person, that person. Just focus on you. Where are you today? Let's
Mhm.
start there. Then the next thing, and I like to make this a fun activity. I do vision boards. Everybody can do like Canva, they can get a piece of paper. It doesn't have to cost money to do a vision board, but where do you
Mhm.
want to go? Where do you see yourself? What makes you happy in life? Some people like cars, some people like vacations. Maybe you want to buy your mom a house someday. What is it that your short, mid, and long term goals look like? And make it visual because I also believe that when you focus on something, it expands, right? So we were talking about the positivity earlier.
Yeah.
I focus on positivity and that expanded for me. So if you have goals and they're visual in front of you, it's going to expand. And I don't believe like quit your job and create a side hustle and everyone should be an entrepreneur because not
Right.
everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. Some people have a gift to help support other entrepreneurs. So be okay with that. So first, know where you're at today, make some goals, make them visual, and then start working on them and go at your own pace. And I do believe that people should have a coach. If you look at sports in general, the best players in the world
Mhm.
always had coaches. So having a money coach is no different than that. It's just someone to hold you accountable, to help you look outside of what you're looking at right now and to be your cheerleader. Like have
Yeah.
somebody celebrate with you. And then when you do have a step back or a minor setback, then it's okay because you can take a step back and still keep moving forward after that. So
Mhm.
keeping it really super simple and making the goals to where you can achieve them. And I like short-term goals, like really quick,
Yeah.
let's accomplish this first because then you get the momentum behind you're still moving forward.
So true. It's so true because, like, what I found is people have the best of intentions, right? And like what you said about having a money coach, it's the accountability, knowing that somebody's going to say, well, did you do your money date yet this month? Versus have that on your own shoulders, two wildly different things. Because you'll come up with so many excuses why not to do it, or, and because that's happened to me in the past, where I've gotten all excited and I'm like, I'm going to do my money date. I'm going to take everything from the credit card and put it in the spreadsheet and know exactly what goes out and what comes in and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, my money always increases when I do that. But then a month will go and we'll have like a vacation on that day, where I'm supposed to do it. And then like a week goes by and then it's like, well, it's almost the next month's by, you know what I mean? And then it just snowballs. And I'm very much a type A, like Virgo, gotta like have everything all tied up. But like the problem isn't not being consistent with that. The problem is the fear that kicks in about what is behind the closet. You know what I mean? Like when you're a kid and it's dark
Mm-hmm.
and you're opening the closet, you're like, I don't want to open this door because a monster could jump out. Well, your bank account becomes that freaking monster because you
Or your
haven't
credit
looked
card
at it.
statement.
Oh
Yeah.
God, yes,
Yeah.
the credit card
Uh-huh.
statement for sure, because you haven't looked at it and you haven't been on top of it. And it's like the longer it's behind you in the shadows, the scarier it gets. Like the numbers don't change on it, but the emotion does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm always amazed too. People haven't looked at their credit card statements, whether it's their personal or their business, and they haven't looked at it in months. And I'm like, how do you know what you're spending money on? To me, it's simple because I've been studying it for so long, but to most
Yeah.
people, it's scary. So look at your credit card statement. There could
Yeah.
be subscriptions that you're paying for that you haven't used. You signed up
Mm-mm.
6 months ago, or it just hit the annual and you're not even using it anymore. That's money you should be taking to tell it where to go so that it goes towards your goals and not
Yeah.
towards something you're not using.
Yeah, it's so true. Because like whenever I do that, I'm always like, what is this thing that you've signed up? Because now we've got like I've got my husband and my kids now, and they'll go on the iPad and they'll get like they'll download like some kind of learning app, and it's like $69 a year with a 1 week, try it out. And I'm like, what kind of subscriptions did you sign up for? What did you
Right.
do? But like, yeah, if you catch them closely enough, like a lot of times Apple will just take it right off for you. So that's
Yeah.
so interesting you say that. So, what else do you feel like is, as far as like entrepreneurs, what do you feel like is the biggest hang up for people who have these big money goals, or they say, like six figures is always like a big one, right? Especially for coaches where it's like the pinnacle. And I think the industry makes it seem like everybody except for you is making 20K months, right? When really it's such a small percentage of people there. So what do you think is the gap there between people having these big grand goals and being really talented people in their corporate life or in their background, and having the skills appear from that life to be able to translate it to help people, for example, online or in in-person business or whatever? What keeps them from actually making it happen?
Yeah. So I know a lot of people have heard the term shiny object, right? It's in
Yeah.
every industry. When you're running a business, you need to find one platform. Figure out one platform where your ideal client is watching. And it could be a social media, it could be YouTube, but master that one platform first. Because when you spread yourself on so many platforms, it's like throwing darts in the dark, right? You're
Yeah.
not actually hitting your target because you don't know where your ideal client is, and it could be very different. Like my demographic, TikTok is probably a great platform, but I'm not utilizing that platform as much because I feel my ideal client is either on Facebook or Instagram. So I'm
Mhm.
targeting them
Yeah.
specifically, and I'm being a master of like figuring out algorithms. Or if you don't want to spend the time to do that, hire it out, right? So pick your platform and master that, and put your dollars to use on that platform so that you know that your message is hitting your
Mhm.
clients. So many people put out tons and tons of information, and it's great information, but they're missing their target. Their client is not paying attention to it because they're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So, and I know
100%.
that you speak on this hugely, right? Is knowing
Mhm.
that your content, if you're going to spend the time on doing it, let's make it work for you, right?
Yeah, totally. There's so much shitty content out there, Angela. I can't, it keeps me employed for years, I swear. Because it's like people see it as something that they can just outsource or be like, oh, like I don't feel like doing content. I can't wait for the day when I don't have to do content anymore. And it's like, that's literally going to be your job, like to have good content. And not to like, and I actually feel like you can automate it. Like if you get good enough content, you can start to put it on automation and some of these tools that you have. So you're not
Mhm.
having to always create fresh stuff. But
Mhm.
but yeah, it's 100%. I know I'm always on my content and messaging soapbox because that's what is going to get people into your world,
Yeah.
especially online. And I
Yeah. Maybe.
100% agree with you about people splitting their time and energy on so many different platforms and becoming a master of none.
Yep, yep. And maybe changing that word, right? Because people think content, oh, that, like I got to record another video. It's not content. Use your expertise and help people. Like,
Yeah.
this is me going back to the heart. Like, I
Yeah.
truly want to help people break the poverty gap and create wealth and income for their family so they feel financially free. I know what it feels like to be broke and to have no money. And I don't want other people to feel that way. I don't want them to repeat that cycle with their children and then their grandchildren. Like, let's break
Mhm.
that cycle but it comes from the heart. So making sure that I'm helping people with the information that I've learned and targeting the right people so that my mission is, this is my mission.
Yeah. And from a sales standpoint, I mean, obviously the name of a podcast is I'm Not Salesy. And people get really hung up on the idea of sales and being too bothersome. And I approach it the same way though, where if you've got to look at it like you're really serving and helping someone find a solution to a problem that they can't fix on their own, I wouldn't feel like I'm bothering my kid if I go to help him tie his shoes in the morning if he's struggling with that. So, but I have to sell myself on, hey, why don't you stop what you're doing and running around and chasing the dog long enough for me to tie your shoes? That's a little mini sale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're an expert in that field, right?
Compared to him, yeah.
Yeah.
And and plus there's the desire. Whereas on his side, he's like, well, why do he wants to automate it? He wants to just use Velcro for the rest of his life, right? But
And that could be okay for someone,
100%. Yeah, I know, right? So, it's so true though, when you approach it from that helping standpoint and from, leading from your heart on how can I make this feel like I'm helping? What is the ripple effect? Like taking it 2 steps beyond just you and looking at how this impacts their life as well can help you get in that frame of mind and actually like start to look at it differently, where it's not just marketing and sales. It's actually helping, right? It's serving the community.
It's serving. That's a big part of it. If there's something that people are coming to you and asking you questions about,
Mhm.
then that is your genius. Why
Yeah.
not share your genius with other people? It's not a sales thing, it's a serving
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, one last question. So, I know there's a big difference between poverty, right? And being a millionaire, So for those who right now feel like in their online business that they're living a life of poverty, only making the $2,000 months, right? Barely scraping by. What do you think is the biggest piece of advice that you can give to them that will virtually ensure that they make it to that 7-figure mark?
Yeah. First, they need to be honest with themselves and figure out what is it that I enjoy doing in life. And a
Mhm.
lot of people will say, like, I hate my job, I hate Mondays. It's a paycheck, right? And that's
Mhm.
okay. But if you figure out something that you enjoy doing that someone would pay you, then start working on it a couple nights a week, maybe a couple hours in the evening, on the weekends. And even if you're married and you have a family, you might be taking time away from them right now, but
Yeah.
you are mastering what you're good at so that you can leave something that you're not enjoying and eventually either work in that field, start your own business, or work for someone that's doing what you love to do.
Mhm.
And then you're teaching your children that you're putting in the time now. And I used to bring, like, my daughter's 20. And so I've always brought
No way. There's no way you have a 20-year-old daughter.
yeah, and so I used to bring her when I owned my Remax office. I would bring her to flip properties, or we would go show
Fun.
properties. And when I was in the car, I made sure that we were listening to Tony Robbins or any other educational information because I wanted to control what was coming into my mind. Now, she didn't always enjoy it as a kid, but
Yeah.
now she understands that controlling of what was coming, the content that's coming into my brain was furthering my mission. So yeah, it goes back to my advice of figuring out what is it that you enjoy doing. Life is way too short. We went through COVID, and I think it changed a lot of people's perspective, right? It's not just about money, but if you create wealth, you are able to give back. You're able to teach other people. If you're doing something that you love and you're creating money, what kind of incredible lifestyle could you live
Right.
knowing that you love what you do, you're making money, you can give back, you can teach people, and you're helping. So why not? Like, why are you staying in this job that you hate? Let's
Yeah.
figure out a way for you to make more money and to get away from that to doing something that you're more passionate about.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the job, like I see people online, especially because I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. Like that's my social media platform of choice. So I tend to like repurpose things over to Facebook and Instagram from that was stuff that was created for LinkedIn. But, so often I see people that are like, you never want to go back to your corporate job again. Leave that soul sucking job. Or they're like, I left my job 30 days ago and now I'm traveling the world. And you could tell that they're still kind of like probably working 18-hour days to barely make what they made in their corporate job. And they have a following, but it's like your followers aren't paying your mortgage, they're not paying for your Airbnb that you're living. And yeah, you have a nice picture, but I don't see you eating at like a nice restaurant. You're still eating like a tiny pizza off the side of the street. You know what I mean? Like, come on, don't glamorize something and give, it kind of ticks me off because of this whole issue where it's like, you're glamorizing this lifestyle for people who are in a corporate job, able to like provide for themselves. Now they're starting to look at this corporate job like a demon, and they're not, and kind of like shitting on themselves for still being in it when other people have this free range lifestyle. And I tell people all the time, like, you've got to look at this in a different way, right? You've got to look at it like your corporate job is your venture capitalist that's fueling the dream company that you want to create. And it's okay to be working with this venture capitalist. Get two of them if you need to, if it's going to let you invest in yourself to get out of your job, right? The compressing decades into days, right? That's where you get the mentor. Like, I see it as like, not, oh, what's the countdown for getting out of this job, but kind of like what you're saying, which is get the support you need to build the skill sets that you need to build, have this money coming in. So it's not so much pressure on your business needing to work to the point that then you dig yourself into some mental grave around why you can't do it or you don't deserve it. I mean, then it's like the demons are like, hey, I hear I'm invited to the party. You know what I mean? And like, because I had that happen to me, like I had a big, successful 6-figure job. And I was like, oh, I'm going to leave this, take care of my kids, and my business is going to take off overnight. And first of all, it's going to depend on the types of programs you invest in, who you're listening to, whether they're completely full of shit or they actually know what they're talking about, or they're just regurgitating what somebody else said. You know what I mean? And like, there's so many moving parts that determine whether or not your business is going to be successful overnight. And so if we can make peace with that job and have that income coming in and make good decisions with it, then I feel like having that mentorship is what's going to get you to that 7-figure mark and up and out of that, instead of living like in just another version of poverty, just a prettier version of poverty that's been glamorized online. Like, you see these people all the time,
Yeah. And I think the corporate job, like, if you love what you do, stay there. It's good. Having a job is not a bad thing. If you love what you do and it's supporting you financially, then stay there, because that's probably your super talent, right? So the entrepreneurial role is not for everybody. It's freaking hard ass work. And if you're not willing to kind of take that leap and run your own show and be responsible for yourself always, right? Then it's okay. And I think that even like through COVID, when people were losing jobs, they're like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur because it looks so cool and fun and exciting. It's not meant for everybody. And it's okay. If you want to work for a corporation or work for someone else, then just be the best version of yourself. Give back, teach other people, lift other people up, and teach your family how to tell your money what to do. That's okay.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to add before we wrap up is you had inspired a thought in me when you were speaking before about changing those generational patterns and actually seeing a difference in how your daughter saw what you were doing. And I feel like that's just such a great, like, even bigger piece of the puzzle for people to see. Like, those little eyes are watching you. And like, you don't want them to see that you're like working all the time and like it's hard to make money or whatever, but they need to see you making good decisions with money and having that work ethic and learning that what comes in their brain is going to shape their future, and breaking those generational patterns of not just like living on the side of the road in a van or whatever, but like having that poverty and lack mindset of like things are going to run out, or always having the fear of like somebody else is in charge of me, whether it's my mortgage company or my flood insurance company or whatever. Like I'll give an example. On Saturday, I was opening mail, and we had this letter from our flood company, and who sends letters anymore? And it had got, like, obviously one had gotten lost in the shuffle. We've got little hands who like to go get the mail sometimes, and it gets put in places where, I'm like, why is this a second notice? I never saw the first one. And I'm like, oh shit. And like, it normally would consume me and I would obsess about it for the rest of the weekend. But I was able to be like, this is always going to get taken care of. Like, it's not a huge deal. Like, there is an answer to this, just like everything else. And it's all going to get worked out. And it's not like worth me ruining the next 36 hours I have with my kids while they're home for the weekend from school,
Right.
But
Right.
if I followed the pattern that I learned growing up with my mom would freak out about everything, then the last 36 hours could have looked way different, of just
Yeah.
being snapped at, or, like, oh my God, I got to call first thing in the morning. But no, I was able to help them get ready for school and make a call before we hopped on this. And it was already taken care, like, things are always going to work out. And having that more abundant mindset that you're giving your daughter, and that now you're teaching other people, like, talk about a ripple effect. Like, that kind of shit will change the world,
Absolutely. Yep. I agree with you 100%. Love that.
Yeah. So, well, where can people find you, Angela? I know you are up to so many fun things. You're like a internet superstar. I've loved following you and getting to know you online. And I can't wait to be on your podcast too. That's going to be so fun when we record that.
Yes, we're going to reverse the roles and you're going to share all your nuggets. I'm excited for it as well. You can find my website, Empower Her Money, and on socials, Instagram. I have learned that I'm not great with social media, so I hired that out. So I know that I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Empower Her Money. So I would love to be able to help anybody, answer questions. But yes, that's
awesome.
I'm on a mission.
Good. I love your mission. I am so honored to learn about it. And thank you for being a guest on I'm Not Salesy. And you guys go follow Angela. I love being able to have the practical money, like the money mindset practically, plus you blend this with some of those NLP techniques and other like money energetics talks that I've had on earlier episodes, and you will be unstoppable in your business. So Thank you, Angela. You have a great rest of your day, y'all. And don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and a review for this podcast so more people can find it on iTunes and Spotify. So thank you. See y'all later. Bye. If you loved this episode of I'm Not Salesy, then go ahead and hit subscribe so that you're notified of the next episode. And also leave a 5-star rating and a review. And if you send it to the link in the show notes, we will send you a present in return. We also love to feature reviews on the podcast as well. So we'd love to feature yours. So go ahead and send a screenshot to the inbox and come find me on social media. I love hearing what you're up to and how you're becoming not salesy too. I'll see you in the next episode.